We will bring the public hearing for Senate File 2472 to order. Speakers will have 2 minutes to speak. Jesse here will have a time card showing a yellow one for 15 seconds remaining. Once you see the red card, it will be a hard cutoff at 2 minutes. Kyle, you're up first. The floor is yours.
Members of the committee, Chairman Norbin, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Kyle Gamble, President and CEO of Hubbell Realty Company. As a large multifamily developer, property manager, and home builder across the state of Iowa, Hubbell supports balanced property tax reform that maintains stability and fairness across all types of homes. Whether an Iowan owns a house or rents a residence, it is still their home. Senate File 2472 creates a new tax classification for multi-residential dwellings and increases taxable value by 35%. This disproportionately impacts 30% of Iowa's residents simply because they rent, as higher property taxes ultimately flow through to monthly rents. Many apartments, rental communities, and assisted living facilities, properties that fall under the proposed multi-residential classification, operate under strict loan requirements, meaning increased expenses must be offset by higher rents. We estimate this proposal could increase rents by approximately $200 a month for many residents across the state of Iowa. We cannot assume residents absorb that increase. When they cannot, property net operating income declines and the cascade begins, impacting stability of the property sector, including declines in property valuations and triggering negative capital market responses, such as troubled debt restructuring, distressed sales, and reduced investment. The result is counterintuitive. Higher taxes today lead to less housing supply and greater affordability constraints over time.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you. Scott.
My name is Scott Newhart. I'm representing the Associated General Contractors of Iowa. We are in support of the Senate bill, and particularly the indexing of the gas tax provision that's in the bill. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to speak before the subcommittee on the Senate bill. I outlined a number of things regarding how the root fund works, the sources of funding, as well as the need. I'm not going to emphasize the need today because of the time involved. I'm going to talk about how it works. The language creates a trigger based on the previous year's consumer price index that the trigger can generate increments of 1/10 of a cent increases up to a penny, and it's capped at a penny at a given time. The trigger is determined by the Department of Revenue. The amount of increase, the department, if the trigger has been met based on the CPI, the Department of Revenue informs the legislature in January of what the increase is. The legislature does not approve the increase. However, they can disprove the increase. Disapproval must come before April 30th of the year. And if no legislative action disproves it, the increase takes effect July 1st. If this had been in law a year ago, it would have triggered a 0.6 of 1 cent increase. And if the legislature had not disproved that, it would have taken effect in July of last year. Some of the critics of this proposal outline it as automatic pilot every year. There are 3 what I call circuit breakers in this proposal. The increase, as I said, can never be more than a penny at a time. The legislature can stop the increase, and if it rises 3 straight years in a row, it must pause at least a year. If it had been enacted, the first time it could go into effect would be July 1st of 2027. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Ryan.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Ryan Roberts with Community Colleges for Iowa. We appreciate the opportunity to speak on this issue. The portion of the bills impacting the community colleges is only a very small part of the overall property tax relief discussion. So it has outsized and consequential impacts on the community colleges and their ability to pay for the certain costs. Community colleges only represent about 2 to 3% of the average homeowner's property tax bill. So capping these levies won't provide any meaningful savings for these homeowners, but it will impact our ability to provide accessible and affordable higher education throughout the state. Division 8 of the Senate's bill caps our fixed rate levies. This is still a negative impact, but it's preferable to capping all of our levies. Most of the revenue from these are specified in law and restricted for specific purposes like equipment and facilities. So we aren't necessarily cutting those underlying costs, but we are removing the system or the way that they're paid for as the system was designed to do. This will force the community colleges to make tough decisions impacting our communities by considering increasing tuition, deferring on maintenance, delaying the addition of new programs. So we appreciate you taking that into consideration and your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Vern?
I'm Laverne Dirks, City Council member from Carroll, Iowa, here to talk about the soft cap and the hard cap. City of Carroll has been recognized by the Iowans for tax relief as being reasonable. In towns over 1,000 population, Carroll is the 6th lowest in the state on our property tax. We're doing the right thing. Taking the soft cap out and doing the hard cap, I have a chart here to show you, and you can take some if you want later on, how that would be unsustainable for us. Because 1 year here, we had a 17% increase in something that we can't control, and that's insurance and employee benefits. If the hard cap's in place, we're not sure what we're going to do. We're going to either have to reduce employee staff or take, debt, increase our debt or whatever. So we're going to be paying interest on top of that. So we're really advocating to keep the soft cap so we can continue our services that the public demands from us. And I guess that's pretty well what I got. We want to make sure that the CGFL, we can do the 2% in Carroll. We've done it for quite a while and maintaining that. And we can do the 2%, but not with the hard cap, not when we have to pay for expenses that we can't control.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Daryl High from High Properties in Cedar Rapids, and I'm here to speak on the multifamily proposed change. I'm against the change. Currently, the state of Iowa ranks 7th or 9th in the country in property tax rates. And I feel like that if we raise the property taxes even more, we could move up in that regard, and that's going to be more difficult for the providers like myself and others that you'll hear from today to build. The current environment is that the deals are skinny as they are, so it would be a real problem to raise the property taxes. The other issue that we have is, I'm going to touch on three things. The other issue is our state average multifamily, and multifamily includes multifamily owned, multifamily rented. We are about 21%, 20 to 22%, where a lot of the states are about 30%. So we're theoretically about 140,000 units shy of multifamily housing. And if you think about who needs that housing, it's the interns, it's the co-ops. I have represented Rockwell Collins for 20 years and handled all of those for them. We need to hire those people. We need a place for them to live. If you were to do an economic new development in Cedar Rapids today, and you called me and said, "How many units do you have?" I have 40. And you go, "Well, Daryl, why don't you build more?" And you go, "Because I'm struggling to make the deals work as they currently are." Last point, we did a quick analysis of some of our competitors in the economic development range, and we just need to continue to provide our economic development people the ability to have units, because housing is on the checklist when these companies come and look at our communities to be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Steve Richardson. I am from the city of Indianola. I have to give a couple of quick statements here quickly. I'm representing myself, not city of Indianola, nor anyone on our city council. I am currently the mayor of the city of Indianola. Median size of cities in Iowa is 426. That means half the cities in Iowa are smaller than 426. Half the cities in Iowa are more than 426. Most of you represent cities that probably are less, somewhere between on the low side of that. Those are the towns that are going to have difficulty with a 2% hard cap. I'm here to ask you to, as a former state legislator myself, having served on the Ways and Means Committee in the Iowa House for 6 years, I would ask you not to have a 2% hard cap, but have the soft cap with opportunities for inflationary adjustments. Trust and agency funds, our insurance costs, excuse me, property and casualty, particularly, are increasing and doubling in costs. It's really hard for cities to make those things up. I have a sheet that will be passed out hopefully to you at the end here to figure out how to deal with property taxes on your own level. Costs for materials, for instance, we were doing a five block water main project. Costs have increased 6 to 15% over the last year when those projects were engineered. So that's cost is increasing. Rock and gravel are increasing year on year. Chemicals for water and wastewater are up 6 to 9%. Tar for seal coating and street repair increasing significantly year on year. Many cities around or under the median size have no new homes or commercial buildings in their towns. So you folks that represent the smaller communities, where do you cut when you have one full-time person and one person that is your part-time clerk? That person in your cities mow the yards, do all those kinds of things. So I would ask you then to also consider keeping the Senate proposal for an increase in the local option sales tax, because that benefits everybody. So I would ask you to do that. For the city of Indianola, it's $500,000 a year that we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kyle Vogel. I live in Iowa City. I'm here as both an investment owner of a condo in Iowa City and also to speak on behalf of the Greater Iowa City Area Apartment Association. The property tax rollback changes in Senate File 2472 are extremely worrisome to our local landlord members. The overwhelming majority of our members are local mom and pop property owners who have single family duplex properties in and around Johnson County. This legislation will mean drastic increased property tax costs for these individuals. Estimates put together by some of our members have included everything from a $90 per month property tax increase for a 2-bedroom condo in Oxford, $117 a month increase for a 4-bedroom single-family home in West Liberty, and as much as even $123 a month increase for a 3-bedroom single-family condominium on the west side of Iowa City. These proposed increases cannot easily be carried by the property owners alone. Although many of them will do everything in their power to keep rents below market value, rents will assuredly go up. And for those rents that aren't raised in line with the property tax increases, the rest of the new tax burden will have to be made up in other ways. That may mean providing fewer services, like no longer providing broadband, charging for off-street parking in near campus areas, stopping owner-provided lawn care and snow removal services, or requiring tenants who currently do not pay utilities to switch those into the tenant's name and responsibility. These are all steps that owners will have to take over the next couple of years of both new leases and lease renewals to decrease costs. Additionally, owners will immediately have to make up for these extreme property tax increases by canceling planned capital improvements for properties, putting off home upgrades like new appliances, new HVAC systems, and most assuredly having to reduce proactive preventive maintenance on the home. These are all things that will harm the economic livelihood of tenants, whether through increased monthly rent, utility, service costs, or simply by reducing the ability of property owners to improve and protect their tenants' homes and their investments. We're sure hopeful that all of you will consider the negative impacts from these proposed changes and move forward with reform that does not put this cost burden on property owners and tenants statewide. Thank you for your time and attention to the matter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to come speak today on this important topic. My name is Brian Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa County Engineer Service Bureau. I spent 25 years as a county engineer maintaining the roads for the citizens of this state. Roads and bridges are essential to every citizen and vital to the economy of this state. I understand the need to make changes in the property taxes, but there's also a need to provide roads and bridges for everyone. These are funded at the local level, in part by road use funds and property taxes, both of which are addressed in this bill we are here to discuss today. The indexing of the gas tax as currently proposed is a good thing. The language sets a maximum increase every year of 1 cent per gallon. It has guardrails built in where this governing body can suspend it when needed. And it cannot increase more than 3 years in a row. By Iowa code, I am personally responsible to run the formula every year that divides over $575 million of road use tax dollars amongst the 99 counties. I put this maximum 1 cent through the formula. Okay. 1 cent per gallon equates to $35,000 to $100,000 per county. And today's cost of road rock, that's anywhere between 100 and 200 loads of rock. You go tell which 100 citizens gets 1 load of rock in front of their house a year. Indexing the fuel tax is not a large burden, will not make Iowa the highest gas prices in the nation, as some people like to say, and is not a replacement for property taxes. Every dollar is needed by the cities, counties, and the Iowa Department of Transportation to offset the loss of buying power. We also ask that you address the property tax statements. Please put what people pay to roads on that tax statement. We want every citizen to know.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tony Jacobson. I'm representing myself, the Landlords of Iowa, which is a statewide organization of typically mom and pop type landlords, and our local chapter of Fort Dodge area landlords. I'm here today to share my concerns about the recent property tax legislation, specifically SF 2472, and the unintended consequences that may create for rental housing across our state. As drafted, the bill appears to reduce the tax burden for owner-occupied homes while increasing taxes in rental properties. It may not seem like a big difference on paper, but the real world difference is significant. Landlords don't absorb the cost of increased taxes and insurance costs. Those expenses flow directly through to the tenants. When the cost of operating rental housing rises, landlords are forced to adjust their rents simply just to keep the properties maintained, insured, and financially viable. This means the very Iowans who are least able to absorb the costs, like working families, seniors on fixed incomes, and individuals with limited housing options, end up paying this cost. At the same time, affordable housing continues to shrink. Higher operating costs make it harder for small housing providers to keep older units on the market, and some ultimately sell or convert the units to some other service. That reduces the supply of costs, driving up rents, or supply of units, driving up rents, and putting additional burdens on the housing shortage. My request is simple. Make owner-occupied homes receive the same tax relief that rental houses do to make it even. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Good morning, representatives. My name is Blake Romas with the Iowa Motor Truck Association, and I'm here to express our members' overwhelming support for Senate File 2472, specifically the provisions related to fuel tax indexing. Iowa's trucking industry recognizes our role in maintaining Iowa's vast network of roads and bridges. That's because these roads and bridges are our offices, and the trucking community are partners in ensuring a sustainable future for funding for this critical infrastructure. Nearly 70% of Iowa communities rely 100% on trucks to supply the goods and products they need each day. The fuel tax indexing provisions in this bill are a critical investment in the infrastructure necessary to continue delivering prosperity to every corner of our great state. Now, at a time when affordability is top of mind for every Iowan, proposing any increase in taxes may seem counterintuitive. But when you consider the real numbers, this particular measure should not be a highly controversial request. According to the Federal Highway Administration, Iowans consume 1,034 gallons of fuel per year per licensed driver. Even in a year where the index adjusts by a full cent per gallon, this is an annual cost per driver of $10.34, or less than 20 cents per week. This is a very reasonable rate to ensure a stable and predictable source of funding for future needs of our state infrastructure. and a penny increase per gallon of diesel fuel consumed by commercial vehicles will not contribute to widespread inflation or increases of the costs of goods delivered by truck. It represents less than a 0.2% increase per gallon of pre-Iran conflict prices and even lower at current rates. It's also worth noting that a significant portion of this funding will be paid by non-resident travelers and commercial vehicles traversing the state. When combined with the ability of the legislature to nullify any annual adjustment and the 3-year cap on the number of consecutive increases, this proposal is practical, reasonable, and will keep Iowa moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sean Fogarty. I'm a partner at Artisan Capital Group. I'm representing myself. I'm going to give you a quick perspective on our company and also talk why we believe the rollback legislation should not change. Artisan Capital Group is one of the largest multi-housing owners in the state. We own about 4,700 units in the state of Iowa. Primarily in central Iowa, we own about 3,500 units between Des Moines and Ames. We have a unique perspective in multifamily because we do own in adjacent states, including Minnesota, Illinois, Nebraska, Kansas. We've also owned in Missouri. I want to talk about that for a little bit. When you look at the state of Iowa multifamily taxes versus border states that I mentioned, we are only second, the second least expensive compared to the other states, with Illinois leading. So again, Illinois leads with the cost of real estate taxes for multifamily, then Iowa, and then you have Minnesota, Kansas, and the others. We look at two different metrics when we compare. One is, the amount of taxes per unit. Iowa's about 2,300 per unit. Illinois is over 3,000. Those other states tend to be between 1,300 and 1,800 a unit. The other metric we look at in terms of total tax cost is the percent of the taxes as percent of total revenue. Again, Iowa's second place, only next to Illinois. We have about 12.9% in that ratio. Illinois is over 13%. The others are below 12%. And I say that because when investors look at the state of Iowa, they look at the competitiveness of that. And right now, in what I've seen over the 12 years that we've invested, where I've transacted in the state of Iowa, we're very competitive. Changing that would cease that competitive nature and let investors invest in other states. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jeff Stambro. I own and operate Stambro Realty Company in Urbandale, where we manage over 2,700 rental units across the Des Moines Metro. I'm here today regarding Senate File 2472, a proposal that will have negative impacts on property owners, but will also directly impact thousands of Iowa renters. The current Senate plan would increase property taxes on multifamily housing by roughly 30%. In practical terms, that means higher monthly rents for working families, like people like teachers, healthcare workers, and service employees who rely on rental housing. With the average age of the first-time home buyer reaching an all-time high of 40, providing affordable and attractive rental options becomes imperative not only to attracting college graduates, but to keep employees and companies in Iowa and coming to Iowa. Property owners have already faced dramatic increases in the cost of property insurance, maintenance, materials, and labor. They simply do not have the ability to absorb or take on property tax increase of this size. This proposal promises to do the following. First, increase rents for tenants. Second, property owners being forced to delay or abandon property improvements, resulting in a decline in property values and our neighborhoods. Lastly, less investors being able to purchase or build needed rental units due to lack of ability to make the numbers work or to obtain financing. It is truly simple. In a market that is already lacking affordable rental housing options and costs at an all-time high for investors, the impact is simple. This tax increase will ultimately hurt the exact people we are trying to protect, the working class renters across Iowa, our neighborhoods in Iowa as a whole. I would strongly urge the committee to reconsider the approach in Senate File 2472, whether that means adjusting the classification, changes, phasing in changes, or studying the downstream impact more closely. Because in its current form, this proposal will have devastating consequences that would ripple across the housing market in the entire state of Iowa. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Tim?
Good morning. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm Tim Ritma, president of Ritma Properties. I wanted to thank you all for what you do for our great state and appreciate the opportunity to discuss my concerns with you today. Tax increment financing, or TIF, remains one of the most flexible and effective economic development tools in Iowa. However, the reforms proposed by Senate File 2472 raises significant concerns, and there is more balanced approach to improving TIF without undermining its success. The treatment of new valuations needs further clarifications. Cities should be allowed to use these new increments as part of the base valuation once the TIF periods expire. It is critical to ensure the increments are not restricted and can function as new valuations moving forward. As currently written in Senate File 2472, could negatively impact existing TIF agreements, potentially causing many active TIF-backed bank loans to default. Development projects take a long time to come to fruition. Large-scale developments can take a decade to become shovel-ready. Perpetual TIF districts must be allowed to continue such big ideas and provide the economic benefits to our great state. Iowa consistently ranks among the most affordable states, often placing the top 5 nationwide. Increasing taxes on multi-residential properties risks undermining this affordability. The proposed increase to multi-residential rollback would significantly raise taxable valuations for apartments and rental properties. Higher property taxes will ultimately be passed on to renters, resulting in increased rental costs across the state. For example, a 30% increase in taxable valuations would force a one-bedroom apartment currently renting for $900 a month to increase approximately to $1,200 a month just to offset taxes alone.
Thank you, Tim.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having me. Chris Costa, I'm President and CEO of Knapp Properties based in West Des Moines, and we are a full service real estate company. We own or manage approximately 2,000 apartment units, all in central Iowa. Want to speak against the Senate proposal to increase the multi-res rollback, but I have a very specific instance and situation to go through with you. We entered into a purchase agreement for a property in West Des Moines about the time the session started. And the way these projects generally transact is you look at what the net income is, you apply a return rate to it, and that helps you calculate a purchase price. So as we've gone through the process, we have due diligence, and I kind of structured it so it expire at the end of your session, hopefully by May 6th. But the calculation yielded a number. So we go to get financing, and we have debt service coverage ratios that we have to meet in order to finalize that financing. But as the Senate bill has worked its way through, we had to look at what the real impact this potentially might have on this transaction. And in this specific instance, it would increase taxes from $130,000 a year to $235,000 a year. That difference is going to have to be made up somehow in order for us to close on this transaction. So what are the different responses? Well, one is the buyer can take a discount based on our calculation. It's about a $9.5 million purchase. They'd have to take a 18% discount, $1.7 million, to make the number work. Or we have to increase rents to recapture the taxes we've lost. That number would be an 8.2% increase to our rents. So I ask you to oppose that portion of the Senate bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Carrie?
Carrie Keating Ramsey. Good morning, Chair and committee. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'm with Keating, and I'm here to speak on Senate File 2472 that will increase property tax 32%. This bill will encourage property decline, decrease property values, decrease population of Iowa. We don't have beaches. We don't have mountains. We need affordability. Last year, Keating put in $27 million worth of public infrastructure. Multiply that number by 2.5, and that is what it would have cost the city to do the same amount of work. We do get paid back over a 10-year period, but it is the only way these projects are getting done in rural Iowa. We're in 27 counties throughout the state, and 25 of them are in the small cities. That means no project in Boone, no project in Corydon, no project in Madrid, no project in Osceola, no project in Stewart, and no project in Winterset. That's a big deal to our state. Our manufacturers are counting on affordable housing, workforce housing. So I'm here today to represent 5,200 people, hardworking Iowans that live in our front doors. They cannot take on a 30% wage increase to cover this. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, members of the committee and Iowans, for listening. I'm Margaret Buckton with the Urban Education Network and Rural School Advocates of Iowa. Both are registered undecided, but we have suggested we're speaking con about 3 specific divisions in the Senate bill. Division 3 impacts school districts negatively in several ways. The first is that it assumes all of the additional levy in the funding formula. The fiscal note estimates that to be just short of $500 million, $500 million that will be on the state's budget. It was so difficult getting to $100 million and 2% SSA this year. I can't imagine how hard it will be to adequately fund schools in the future now that you've implemented the income tax cuts. It lowers the PEPL and debt voted levies to 70% of their current rate, and at the same time resets residential property at 65%. That's an immediate capacity reduction in the things that pay for school safety and buses and technology and career technical education equipment, windows, doors, and school facilities. It prohibits a district from levying management fund if the ending balance this year exceeds 180% of the prior 3 years' expenditures. This is tricky because risk isn't the same every year. The costs of things happen sporadically. You'll have a derecho, a tornado, a flood, of expensive litigation, workers' compensation, and you have to save up to be ready to pay those things. The annual expenditures really are the premiums that happen every single year. So basing it on a prior 3 years average is ill-advised. Division 14, the property tax statements, your version of this is so much better. This bill doesn't make those statements any more understandable to Iowans, and it doesn't tell Iowans how much their taxes are going to go up. And then Division 20 limits school unspent balance to 35% of authorized expenditures from 2 years ago. That's a one-size-fits-all limitation, and it doesn't reflect the differences that schools need, and it violates Iowa's long-held belief of local control. As you work toward consensus, we hope you consider how this will impact students. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda, and I'm here on behalf of my company, Nested. Nested is a social impact real estate company that purchases homes and leases them exclusively to care agencies serving individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or IDD. Today, across the state of Iowa, we own 110 single-family homes in 20 counties, all of which are licensed Medicaid care homes via the Department of Health and Human Services. Across these 110 homes, we estimate that over 400 Iowans with disabilities are receiving care. When it comes to housing, individuals with IDD face the same affordability challenges as so many Americans. Many of them don't have the resources to purchase a home themselves, and most of their care agency partners aren't funded to provide housing. So because of this, IDD care agencies rely incredibly heavily on rental housing. As written, we are concerned that the proposed legislation and the property tax increase would put an outsized burden on individuals with disabilities who are already an incredibly vulnerable population that have limited housing options available. Across our 110 homes, we estimate that our annual property tax bill would increase $150,000 or more, which is not something that individuals with disabilities nor their care agency partners would be able to absorb. With this in mind, we encourage that any proposed legislation be carefully tailored to minimize the impact on individuals with disabilities and similarly vulnerable populations. We would welcome the opportunity to be a part of that discussion, and we thank everybody for your time today.
Thanks, Amanda.
Good morning. My name is Dave Hyman, president of Haverkamp Properties. We represent over 5,000 units of apartment housing across the state of Iowa. In addition, we would be the largest provider of student housing, both at Iowa State University, University of Iowa, Des Moines Area Community College, Kirkwood Community College are a couple of areas we represent. And as you've heard from many of my esteemed colleagues here today, just about the impact of this proposed legislation, but just specifically, I would say that for the students, we would see an outsized burden placed upon them for an education that is already significantly expensive for them to obtain. You've seen the University of Iowa and Iowa State University both have positive enrollment growth of previous 3+ years. And as that enrollment growth continues and we all seek to have educated young people that will want to stay in our state, increasing the cost of student housing would be very detrimental, obviously. Just so, in addition, new development would cease to happen. So as you see the demand for student housing growing with no new development and the increased cost that would be passed on to the renter, all of those would lead towards a economic climate that would be just unfortunate for those young people in the state of Iowa, making an already expensive education even more expensive, and dissuading them from pursuing that higher education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dave.
Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jordan Bauslag. I'm a commercial real estate broker with Cushman & Wakefield, Iowa Commercial Advisors. Thank you all for your time. I'm here in opposition to Senate File 2472 because of what the rollback change does to multi-residential. In 2013, this legislature made a bipartisan decision to phase a multi-residential to residential parity in just shy of a decade. That transition has finished. Senate File 2472 doesn't just reform property tax, it reverses a decade of policy in a single vote and pushes every rental duplex, fourplex, and apartment building in Iowa back into commercial class treatment. There are 3 consequences the committee should weigh. First, for owners. A 50% homestead exemption helps homeowners, but it exempts rental housing. Every dollar of new tax comes straight off of NOI. At a 6 cap, a $50,000 increase destroys over $800,000 of asset value, most of that borne by Iowa Family Partnerships, not out-of-state REITs. Second, banks. Apartment loans across Iowa were underwritten to the current rules, even with transactions within the last 12 months. This bill trips DSCR covenants, pushes LTVs over a threshold, and forces portfolio-wide restressing at community and regional banks, right as the 2026 refinance wave hits. And third, renters. Property tax passes through as rent. A bill sold as homeowner relief becomes a rent hike burden on Iowa workers. I'd ask the committee to preserve the multi-residential framework and consider the dangerous velocity at which this bill is being proposed. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Jordan. We have 5 speakers left.
Hello, my name is Scott Cutler and I'm with Cutler Development. My business is just my wife and I. We work out of our house and we're a small mission-driven developer that prioritizes infill, sustainably built, quality, affordable housing. I'm here in opposition of Senate File 2472. This property tax bill, as you've heard from others, would increase property taxes for affordable housing by 82%, over 80%, when property taxes already make up the largest expense for our residents. This drastic of an increase in taxes would be devastating. The need for affordable housing in Iowa and across the country is increasing exponentially. Further, these projects are notoriously difficult to keep financially stable and even more difficult to develop new. The proposed property tax increase would increase costs for apartment residents, many of which are already financially burdened, putting great stress on existing and newly proposed affordable housing. We hope to keep dignified and quality affordable housing within reach for Iowans, and to do this, we must keep taxes manageable for rental housing. Thanks so much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's JB Conlon. I run a small business with my father. He started that business in 1968, and we've been doing affordable housing in and around central Des Moines since that time. So we're steeped in this space. I'm here to explain and talk about the devastating impact removing the rollback will have on Iowa families. 40% of Iowa families rent. And property tax is one of our biggest, if not the biggest expense. It will certainly be the biggest if this rollback goes away. So I know a lot of people are throwing numbers at you, but I did these numbers and I can back them up. This is based on our portfolio. And we primarily work in the affordable housing space. So in that space of 500 units that I looked at and ran through the numbers, you are looking at a $1,400 tax increase per family that lives in these properties. It's significant, especially when you're at the lower end of the economic scale. This will not only impact the families, but it will have a devastating impact on development of multifamily when we are in a state that desperately needs workforce housing. So I urge you to eliminate and do not change the rollback. The rollback is not a simple increase. It actually equates to an 82% increase in taxes. So if you take the taxes that you're paying today as a housing provider, you will take that times 1.82, and that will be your new tax rate. Divide that by 12, and that's going to be the monthly increase per month. It's significant. And again, we're at the lower end of the scale. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Debbie Fisher. I represent Newberry Management Company and the Iowa Assisted Living Association, and we're here in opposition to the file 2472. Nearly 500 certified assisted living communities across Iowa provide apartment homes to thousands of our elders, average age 87. The ongoing labor shortage in the service industry, healthcare, food, transportation, maintenance, all combined with continuing inflationary pressures have severely impacted operating margins, particularly in small assisted living communities located in rural areas in Iowa. We serve the most frail population of our elders, and it's critical to prevent a shift in the tax burden, which these are part of multifamily, for these essential apartment homes for our elders, and to keep the cost within reach of most Iowans. It also impacts the ability of Iowans to move from their homes when they do need care and free up that existing housing stock so that others coming up the ladder can have a single family home to enjoy. So we are definitely in opposition to losing the multifamily rollback because it really does affect all the healthcare aspect too. Thank you very much for allowing me to make these remarks today.
Thank you, Debbie.
Jason Stauffer here, speaking on behalf of New Century FS, a retail division of Growmark. Growmark is one of the single largest purveyors of motor fuel tax in the state of Iowa. While many of this has been framed around as a gas tax increase, it's important to note that the fuel tax index proposed by the Senate covers both gasoline and diesel fuel. Iowa's diesel fuel market includes the sale of approximately 730 million gallons of taxable gallons annually to the largest diesel fuel customers, including farmers and commercial end users. In my role as refined fuel sales and marketing manager, I'm sitting here today to relay the affordability and inflationary are the number one issues facing my farm and non-commercial customers. Rising input costs are devastating these customers, and pairing a fuel tax increase with an automatic index will only add upward pressure to the input cost. 19 of the 25 highest fuel tax states in the country employ an automatic indexing system. If you want to look at how quickly a fuel tax index can get out of control, simply look to our neighbors of Illinois as a good example. Iowa's gasoline and diesel fuel market includes roughly 2.2 billion gallons of taxable motor fuel sales annually. An annual penny per gallon tax increase, as proposed by the Senate bill, equates to an automatically $22 million tax increase to Iowans annually. But the impact does not stop there. Transportation input costs like fuel prices factor into the cost of goods, services for consumers, farmers, and commercial end users alike. Automatic annual tax increases like the one proposed in the Senate bill will raise the cost of goods over time and serve as a second tax on Iowa's resulting from the fuel tax index proposed. Thank you for your time today. On behalf of New Century FS, Growmark, and our customers, I ask that you remove the automatic fuel tax index from your very important analysis within this property tax reform. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, representatives. My name is Tyler Rager. I serve as the State Director for Americans for Prosperity here in Iowa. And I'm here this morning to register our opposition to Senate File 2472, primarily for the provision containing the automatic fuel tax increase. While we certainly agree that infrastructure is a core essential function of government, and we too want good roads and bridges, we absolutely oppose any attempt to foist a mechanism upon Iowans that would automatically increase a tax nearly every year without discussion, without debate, and without an affirmative vote by the legislature. We think it's a slippery slope. And if you can apply the logic of indexing the gas tax to anything else, why not? Why not do it to the income tax? Why not do it to property taxes? Why not do it to corporate tax? Heck, why not do it to spending? That way the legislature will never have to take a tough vote again. We think that's a slippery slope and a path that we don't want to go down here in Iowa. While we're facing the third highest gas prices in human history, other states around the country are suspending their state gas tax and providing real relief to their constituents. And so we're not sure why we're considering a proposal that would increase and put our gas tax on autopilot to the detriment of Iowans. We simply just don't believe that this bill is the place, nor is this the time to be considering such a proposal. And we'd ask that you remove it before moving this bill forward. Thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Tyler. That exhausts our list. Any comments, Representative Jacoby? Okay. Appreciate everybody who came and spoke. Appreciate the feedback. We will adjourn the public hearing. Thank you.